Our first bit of new parts here comes courtesy of Phytech. And what this is their in-tank solution for a high pressure system. So Tanks Inc. makes everything so much easier when it comes to actually installing that EFI fuel pump. Classic Industries outdid themselves big time on how nice these bumpers look. Absolutely love the way that these things look on this car. I mean, look at that. This looks so much better. So let's attempt to remove this windshield. All I've done is just pulled the screws and bolts out of its bottom plate. See if we can weasel it out of here. Okay. Nice. So the thing about these windshields is that they actually glue in. There's really like no channel that the windshield has to lock in, kind of like on my Charger. This one actually, it sits in there, and then there's like a urethane strip that goes in there, and then the windshield actually glues in. So does it work? I mean, kinda, because a lot of your newer cars use something similar, except they're just a lot better made. So some things that we'll have to get for this windshield. I'd like to replace it, but I also would like to get some new windshield clips as well. So all this is still really nice. We'll put this up somewhere safe to keep it from getting damaged, because all this could be potentially polished. You know, it's all still really clean and good looking. Right? Yep. Well. Woo. Should have pushed over here first. But that's okay.
See if you can fold this thing up and get it in the garbage.
Awesome. Here, let me pop out. I'll grab it.
The back glass ain't got that. Now you can get your dash.
Is your side out of the slide though, over there?
No, not yet. It's almost past the stud. I got one out. There it is.
Hold up, there's one. You can just set it down, I'll figure out the rest of it.
Yeah,
I can get it out now. Look, the wires in that cable. Ain't that something? Look at that.
Somebody had fun with that on when they put it together.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Pull this wire. Do you see some cutters close to you? Here, but I got it. I don't know what that wire is, and it don't matter.
So now that we have the dash out of the car, let's take a second and really preserve this harness, because there's somebody out there who could still use this. I may be going with the new harness, an aftermarket harness, but I really hope that somebody out there can eventually use this for their own Challenger. So I think it's a good idea to keep it. Let's take our time and really be gentle with it and remove it from everything. So what I want to do though is strip everything out of this dash, get the pad off, and get it basically down to the bare frame so we can paint it. Had to move outside because we had another project filming inside. That's no worries. Got all the bolts out of the dash pad. Let's pull it out. She's bald. Oops. Now that we have the dash totally disassembled, it's time to go ahead and get everything repainted. And what I'm going to do is actually sand everything down to pretty much a very smooth finish, use a combination of different grits, and you'll see me actually do a few different layers of paint. I wanted to tell you what kind of paint I'm using. I'm using a self-etching primer to bond to the bare metal. And then on top of that, I'm using filler / sandable primer. That way it fills in the cracks and all the gaps, and I can really smooth it out. It really builds up a layer, and you can do multiple layers as you need, and then smooth out all those fine scratches. And on top of that, I'm doing Rust-Oleum Satin Black, and then on top of that, Rust-Oleum Satin Clear. So all of that, and then I'm going to take and do a couple layers of each one. I'm doing 3 coats of black and then 2 coats of clear just to make sure everything's protected. I'm going to sand in between with 600 grit to smooth it out and bring back some of that, a little bit of a dullness to the clear, and then throw clear back on top. Well, how about that, guys? I'm not a total hack. Went and sent off the glove box lid and a couple other pieces that I'll show you here in a second. Got them sandblasted down to the bare metal. That way we can really make them look good and pop with the rest of our interior. So what you see here is me actually prepping it. I scuffed it up, got the surface a little rough, and cleaned it up real nice to make sure there are no contaminants on it. Now we'll hit it with some paint. and with the ashtray door and the glove box lid painted, I am quickly once again reminded why I don't paint. Over here, we've pulled the dash frame outside. We're working on getting everything sanded. Now the thing about the factory is that the only spot that they really focused on to paint was right here in this area. So I've really just kind of been trying to get that as smooth as possible, while places like up here where the dash pad will cover it, all this up under here behind the gauges, I've just tried to been knocking out all this this rough spots, little rough rust. I am going to paint the whole thing, but I'm not going to really spend much time on this side as much as I am over here to make that look finished. But we got to knock all this rust off, clean it up really nice. We'll prime it, paint it all, and hopefully it looks just as good as the glove box lid. I'm just really trying to make sure that I'm going to take my time, because this is really going to be the centerpiece of the interior. We want to make this look really nice. So doing a little bit extra than what the factory did, just to prevent anything from rusting any further, you know, down the line. And this stuff, it doesn't really matter how it turns out necessarily, because it'll be covered, but we do want to make sure that it at least is clean, so that way when we, you know, go to actually paint it, nothing will flake off, and then it'll be pretty much rust prevented for the next 50 years or whatever. And the next person who comes along and tears it apart to paint it won't have such a hard time like I did. And you know, I didn't sandblast this because my sandblaster connection doesn't have a cabinet big enough to fit this in, so I'm having to do all this by hand. But as long as over here looks good and is clean and is smooth, this is really where I'm worried about. I want all this to line up nicely and look really pretty against our glove box lid and ashtray door. So I've been really paying extra attention to that. So next step, once we get all this cleaned off, get all the rust out of it, we'll hit it with some primer, then paint. So we'll do the same process we did on the other components. We'll do self-etching primer to go on the bare metal, filler primer that we can sand, you know, get in those grooves and sand out smooth, and then base coat, clear coat. Now I'm doing the inside first because again it doesn't necessarily matter as much, but we still want it to look, you know, at least nicer on the inside. So I'm not really going to do as much finish work on this one, but when we flip it over, that's when we'll actually get into, you know, making everything look smooth and glossy. But first, start out with some Rust-Oleum self-etching primer. Now I know that it's not a top quality restoration finish, but it will do the job. It'll look really nice in the process. I know all the bodywork people are screaming at the screens right now, but it works for me. So I've got the etching primer all laid down where I want it to. You know, just cover up the bare metal. Did 2 coats, got it laying on pretty nicely, and go back and scuff it, smooth it out, and then get any high spots out of it. Hit it with our sandable primer, and then we should be okay. I went with the scuff pad first, and then 400 grit, and then 600 grit on top of that. Tack rag, clean it up, and hopefully all this stuff lays down nicely. at the end of the day, our dash turned out perfect. I cannot stress how well this thing turned out, and I'm really excited to finally put this thing back together and put it back in the car. There's a lot of hours in making all this smooth and, you know, cleaning up everything and making sure all these surfaces that'll show on the dash were nice and clean. So messed up a couple times having to go back and repaint a couple things, but all in all, you know, it's really going to look great when it's back in the car. And again, you know, this wasn't painted from the factory, but we did it anyway just to keep it from rusting any further in the future. But I think it's going to be well worth it when the dash goes back in together. And I really am happy with how it looked. But I wanted you guys to see how nice the dash actually turned out. And when we start throwing our glove box lid, our ashtray lid, and the dash pad, all the instrument panel, all that stuff, we've got everything brand new for this dash, just ready to go back in and look amazing. So really excited by how it looked and how it turned out. Now I just have to put it somewhere to keep it from getting scratched, and that's the biggest part. But anyway, just wanted to show you guys that there's a lot of effort, a lot of time that goes into painting something like this, especially something this big of a piece. And you know, this is something that you really want to spend your time on, because this is what you will see the most of. You'll be looking square at this thing for every time you drop it. You will be looking at the dash. So I've made that mistake before by not spending my time making a dash look nice. So we're not going to make that mistake again. We're really going to make this thing look good, and it's going to pop when it's actually in the car. So that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We got a lot done. Got a really cool start on the interior. Got all the glass out, and that'll give us really good access to get in there and get the headliner in. And once we get everything out of the way, we can really, you know, stretch it out and clip it on the ends. We got all that stuff out of the way. We got our trim pieces to paint. We've got door panels, and everything from Classic Industries looks amazing. I absolutely love the way that it all looks. I can't wait to see the rest of the parts go in. We've got a ton of interior parts from Classic Industries that we got to throw to this car. Got our dash ready and prepped. Still got a couple more pieces that we need to install, but it's ready to go and start assembling, and I'm really excited about that. It's going to look awesome finally in the car. But thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you have a question for me, feel free to leave a comment. You can also drop a line over in our Facebook group and send in your project, order your t-shirt and your stickers. The link is down below, and I appreciate everything you guys have done for me, and I absolutely love seeing this car make some progress. So it's been slow, but it's been sure, and I appreciate everybody being patient with me. We're going to get this car done, and it's going to fire. So thanks again. I'll see you in the next one.